This blood transfusion is part of the supportive treatment that Diana Katusime is receiving at Mulago Hospital in Kampala. She is suffering from a complication known as aplastic anemia.
A form of anemia, and by anemia we mean a reduction in one's blood amount.
Katusime's mother says her daughter's condition started when she was about 10.
Bamujako amazi ku mugongo bamujako mbatwa weeks 2 tukomewo balabye ekimuluma kati weeks 2 uzagwawo tujja results nzibula.
They did not follow up, thinking it was a minor case of nose bleeding, but their daughter's condition continued to deteriorate.
Nabeera talina maani bulungi abwamu omusaayi mpola mpola lukusomera ngeri omutwe gumuluma.
In May this year, Katusime was rushed to Mulago Hospital where she was diagnosed with aplastic anemia.
One can bleed and probably die.
Dr. Henry Dungu is a hematologist at Mulago Hospital. His branch of medicine is concerned with the study and treatment of diseases related to the blood. All the cells found in the blood are formed in the bone marrow. They begin as stem cells and mature into 3 types of cells: the red blood cells, which carry oxygen to the rest of the body, white blood cells, which fight infections, and the platelets, which help avoid excessive bleeding in case of injury.
It's a disorder where the parents to those cells, what we call stem cells, get damaged, and you can no longer get new cells forming.
And as a result, a person with a deficiency of blood cells can get complications.
General fatigue, because they don't have enough red blood cells to carry nutrients to the rest of the body. They can present with recurrent infections because of deficiency in the white cells, and also with bleeding. Sometimes what we call spontaneous bleeding. You're not cut, nothing happens, and you just look at your skin and it is full of blood.
The commonest symptom of aplastic anemia is bleeding, which Dr. Dungu says should not be taken lightly.
A patient with aplastic anemia can present with nose bleeding, but they can also present with bleeding from other sides of the body. For a young lady, they can present with uncontrolled menstrual flow.
Medical research classifies this condition into 2, acquired and congenital aplastic anemia.
The acquired anemia might come as a result of one's immune system turning against itself, and then you end up damaging your stem cells. There are some types of anemia that one is born with, and those have a genetic predisposition.
Aplastic anemia manifests as mild, severe, or very severe.
Diana has very severe aplastic anemia because she cannot spend 2 weeks without coming to hospital. She needs to be on blood products.
Kengonzi is another patient on supportive treatment for aplastic anemia at Mulago Hospital. Although she looks healthier than Katusime, she relies heavily on blood transfusion.
You can come when it's not there. They just say we don't have enough blood. We just have for emergencies. And you don't get, can move for maybe 1 to 2 times a week without getting. You get on the 3rd day. Maybe they had written 2 units, you get another one on Friday like that.
Dr. Dungu says the origin of this blood deficiency is a general weakness in the bone marrow where the blood cells are formed. Blood transfusion is just part of the supportive treatment given as a cheaper option for patients who cannot afford more complex and definitive treatment.
You also give them antibiotics, especially when they have very low white cells and they are at risk of getting infections.
Some of the medicines are not available in the pharmacy. We get some from the pharmacy, but some are just bought outside.
The good news is that aplastic anemia can be treated.
The challenge is that treating aplastic anemia is extremely expensive.
According to records at Mulago Hospital, most of the patients who are treated for this condition only get supportive treatment. There is, however, another form of treatment called immune suppressive treatment.
These are special medicines that you give to someone to stimulate their bone marrow to produce more cells.
This, however, would work best in patients with acquired aplastic anemia.
We can use that for a period of time, give a number of cycles, and the success rate is about 60 to 80%.
The cost of this treatment depends on the cycles prescribed.
Oluusi batuwandikira eddagala osanga mu nnaku 5 olituuta emitwalo nga 14 15.
Batugamba doozi ya $1,700,000.
The definitive treatment for aplastic anemia is changing one's bone marrow into something else. So you do a bone marrow transplant.
Katusime needs a bone marrow transplant, which Mulago Hospital is currently not in position to offer.
Someone has to be sent to another country where they can do bone marrow transplant.
The bone marrow transplant would require a person who has a matching DNA with the patient, most preferably a relative.
If she has a relative donor, would be maybe around $30,000. That is if everything goes okay. But if there's need for intensive care admission, there's need for extended stay in hospitals, it can go as much as $50,000.
Surprisingly, aplastic anemia is such a common disease, but many of the patients neglect its symptoms. Majority of them, according to the doctors, only come to the hospital when it has reached its advanced form.
One who cannot afford either treatment would have to depend on blood transfusion for the rest of their lives.
There are complications of transfusion. People get what we call alloimmunization. People get iron overload.
Katusime, who is supposed to sit her senior 4 final exams this year, still lies in hospital, holding on to hope that she will one day get a bone marrow transplant. Gertrude Tumusime with Kwade, NTV.